The opinions expressed on the following program are strictly those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of WCZT, regional media, coastal broadcasting, personnel, or advertisers.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
And welcome back to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from 98.7 The Coast. I feel like they didn't start that disclaimer until I got here. I'm sure there's no correlation whatsoever. Anyhow, I'm broadcasting live from beautiful Wildwood, New Jersey, here on 98.7 The Coast. It's the end of July, almost August. We're like right in the middle here of a beautiful summer. It's wonderful, and I am indeed broadcasting live, like seriously live, for real live. My last two shows were pre-recorded because I was traveling, but I really am in the studio. It really is 7:02 p.m. here on the East Coast. If you are listening to the show live and not as a podcast. Our guests this evening are going to be in the 7 o'clock hour. Danielle Roberts, she's the founding partner of Boomer Benefits, and she will discuss the 10 costly Medicare mistakes you can't afford to make. And in the 8 p.m. hour, we'll have Jodie Sacco, who is the founder of ActionCOACH Global Las Vegas, and she'll join us to discuss how entrepreneurs can avoid burnout and protect their mental health. Very important. Being an entrepreneur is certainly not easy. But before we get to that, we will chat a little bit about what is going on in the news, and lots of important stuff happening in the economy and in the world of finance. First of all, we're going to get tomorrow, we're expecting news about how the economy has grown or not grown. Pay close attention to this. The reason why this number is so very important is because this is how we decide, or traditionally in the past have determined whether or not we're in a recession. Now, traditionally that has been defined by 2 consecutive quarters, economic quarters, of negative growth or loss, economic loss. My guess is that the Biden administration is anticipating that the economy will have again suffered a loss, and that will be the second quarter that the economy did not grow, which would mean that the economy is in a recession. So the last couple of days, the government and politicians and the media has been doing what it does and kind of redefining what a recession is. It's saying, well, that's not really what a recession is because we have low unemployment right now. We have other economic fundamentals that are doing well. And so we can't really say that we're in a recession. But that has not traditionally been the definition of what a recession is. Traditionally, look it up if you don't believe me. I mean, I'm not telling you stories. Anything that I tell you can certainly be verified. Look it up. What is a recession? It is 2. It is 2 quarters, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. That's what traditionally it has been. And today, the Fed chairman, who, by the way, also raised interest rates again today, that was raised again, and they're trying to, it's very interesting. You have to read, words are very important. Read how different media outlets are characterizing what the Fed chairman did today. The Fed chairman said, no, I don't think that we're in a recession. No, things are fine. It's going to be okay. We're not in a recession. I don't think we're in a recession at all. It's going to be just fine. I'm like, why are you saying that? But this is all about politics. It's about the fact that we have a midterm election coming up. And what that means is that we'll be that Congress is getting reelected. That in the House and in the Senate, and this is on the federal level, that we'll be reelecting those folks, or at least they'll be running for reelection. And the Democrats are worried that they're going to get their clocks cleaned, and so that's what this is all about. And you have to pay attention to both of those. So when I say that my show is about a lot about the intersection of those things, about how your money and politics and all of these things intersect, and why it's important to pay attention to these things. It's crazy. It's just crazy to me how these people will completely try to reinvent the narrative. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen insisted on all the news shows on Sunday that no, 2 quarters of negative GDP growth does not mean that there's a recession. And I'm like, really, sis? Because that is what it's meant all this time that I've been teaching economics. It meant that when I was getting my business degree. It meant that when I was getting my master's. It has meant that all this time. But now it doesn't. And she's saying, well, it doesn't technically mean that. That's like when I go to my doctor's office and he tells me my BMI is like 55. And because I haven't had a stroke or a heart attack yet, I tell him that I'm not technically unhealthy. And he's like, but ma'am, your numbers are off the chart and you weigh like a whole lot. But because the actual catastrophe hasn't taken place yet, I'm okay. Like, no, that's not the way it works. You don't wait until you've completely fallen off a cliff before you call it what it is. It's a recession. It is what it is. So keep your eyes open for that number tomorrow. I can almost guarantee that because, the mainstream media and all of the advocates and spokespeople for the Biden administration are going to such great lengths to say that there isn't a recession, that those numbers are not going to be great tomorrow. That's what I anticipate. And today, the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates by 0.75%. Again, just like they did in June. It's a historic move. One of the articles that I read, I think it was on Yahoo Finance today, said that they were doing it to stave off a serious recession. I was like, excuse me? But it's not a recession. But maybe it's like a light recession. Like a feathery recession, as opposed to a concrete recession. But everybody's feeling it. And this is the problem. The politicians and the media trying to manipulate you into thinking that it isn't what you can see, that you're not paying, googobs more in gas, that you're not, they're celebrating on social media. Oh my goodness, gas is 60 cents less. Yes, but it's still $2 more than it was last year. That is not okay. It's not okay. And also, I think you people told us that you had nothing to do with gas prices going up. You told us that it was because of the war. You told us that there were all these other reasons that you had nothing to do with why gas prices were high. But then when gas prices dropped, you took a victory lap. But I have a little FYI for you as well. Here's how the economy works, like Economy 101. When prices get super, super duper high, one of the things that happens is it gets too high for people to buy it, so they buy less of it. And if a lot of people buy less of it or don't buy as much, at some point that causes prices to drop. That's the basic law of supply and demand. So that is probably what started to happen. Also, when the price of oil starts to go down, that's a lagging price because the price of oil, it also has to be refined before it gets to the gas stations and all that stuff. So you might have been asking the question, well, how come the price of oil went down, but we didn't see it at the gas pumps? Because it has to be refined, it has to go through a process before it gets to us at the pump. So that price lags. So when you have those things that kind of happen in combination together, then that's when you see the price go down. So you have, people just getting killed at the gas pump and changing their habits and changing their ways and not doing quite as much. And then you have the price kind of catching up finally with the price having gone down, right? So now the price is 60 cents less, which, by the way, you're still not being cut a break when it's still double what it was before. Just saying. So sit down, have several seats. Biden administration, who you told us you had nothing to do with the gas prices going up or down, and you have everything to do with prices going up or down. Ugh, so annoying. Just annoying. Just pay attention, folks. That's all I'm saying. Just pay attention. And if you look up several resources, and I highly recommend, instead of Google, because they're kind of evil, just look up things on different search engines. DuckDuckGo is another one, because you will get different results. And if you want to entertain yourself, I highly recommend looking up how search engines work. There's a TED Talk on it that's very interesting. If you don't believe me as far as your getting different results on Google according to your IP address, that's just like a little techie thing. If you think I'm making this up, it really does matter. Just saying. So we're up against a commercial break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My first guest is Ms. Danielle Roberts. She's the founder of Boomer Benefits. We're going to talk about 10 costly Medicare mistakes you can't afford to make, and we'll be back on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Medicare mistakes you can't afford to make, and is a frequent source for major news outlets such as CNBC, Fox, Yahoo Finance, Kiplinger, and MarketWatch. She has appeared on more than 200 podcasts, radio shows, TV segments to educate the public about Medicare. Danielle serves on the NAHU Medicare Advisory Group, where she advocates for Medicare beneficiaries at a national level to government organizations, including CMS. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Danielle Roberts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This is a super important topic, and especially for those of us who have parents who are right in the zone, right at that age, and those of us who are approaching that age. So I really appreciate you being here to share your wisdom.
Of course, I'm happy to help, and hopefully we'll brighten up some people's day with some good Medicare information.
It's a complicated topic. I have my insurance license, and I found this to be the most challenging part of the test.
Yeah. Parts and letters and all the things that make it so confusing.
Right. A, B, C, D, E, F, F. Good grief. It was just a lot. I'm just saying. It was just so. I mean, if I, as a person who, responsible for explaining it to people, had difficulty, I'm just imagining how an older person who is responsible for trying to purchase it for themselves, how confusing it has to be for them.
Of course. And it's such a good point, too, Melanie, because if you think about it, they've had their insurance provided to them by their employers all their working lives. Maybe your HR person gave you two choices between an HMO and a PPO, but you come into Medicare and you have 4 parts, and literally thousands of choices across America for drug plans and advantage plans. So it's no wonder that people get frustrated and they sometimes procrastinate their Medicare decisions because it's just mind-boggling.
It is. So let's kind of start from an elementary perspective and start with, when we talk about Medicare, what are we talking about? Because we kind of hear about two things as we get older, right? We hear about Medicare and Medicaid, and they really are two distinct, different things. What are they, and what are the differences?
So that's correct. So Medicare is our federal program that provides health insurance to people who are age 65 and older and certain people who have qualifying disabilities. So most people age in to Medicare when they retire. And by the way, it's not correlated with when you take Social Security. So you could take Social Security before or after Medicare, but with Medicare, you're definitely eligible at 65. And then Medicaid is a joint federal and state program which provides health care for people with qualifying low incomes. And it is possible to have both. So if you were, say, 65 or older, and you also qualified for Medicaid based on low income, you would have both programs, Medicare being primary and Medicaid being secondary. But most of the millions and millions of people who are on Medicare have just Medicare as their primary insurance.
Okay, that makes sense. And so now, do you have to be retired in order to take advantage of Medicare?
You do not have to be retired. So if you were still working and you wanted to have Medicare and your employer group insurance, you could have both. However, Medicare Parts B, C, and D have premiums associated with them. So most people who are working for a large employer with 20 or more people, that group insurance is going to be their primary coverage. And so we often see them delay their enrollment into Medicare Parts B and D just to avoid having to pay those premiums because their employer coverage already provides them with outpatient coverage and drug coverage. But occasionally we do have people who want it all so that they can have the lowest copays possible, and that is certainly possible to do that.
Okay, I was gonna say that, like, if you want to mitigate your out-of-pocket expenses, would it be better to have both?
Yeah, you can do that. And what a lot of people will do, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the costs, but Medicare Part A, which is your hospital coverage, if you've worked for 10 years in your lifetime, or you're married to someone who did, or even you can even get Part A through an ex-spouse or a late spouse, that costs $0 when you turn 65, as long as you have paid those FICA taxes during your working years for at least 10 years. And so in America, about 99% of people pay nothing for Part A. So what we see a lot of people do is go ahead and enroll in the Part A and let that coordinate with their group insurance, and that could be really helpful. Let's say that you work for a large employer and you've got a $5,000 deductible on your plan. Well, if you go into the hospital, you're going to come out of pocket $5,000, but if you had that coordinated with Medicare Part A doesn't cost you anything, but Medicare's hospital deductible is $1,556. So Medicare would kick in and pay that difference for you on your hospital Part A bills. And so that's what a lot of people will do. And then later when they retire, they pick up the Parts B and D.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And that's what, that's where it starts to get kind of hairy, I feel like. And I feel like it starts to get that way when you're kind of least prepared to start thinking about that stuff. And when you have the least amount of help.
Yes. That's right. And what makes it even more confusing is about a year before you turn 65, your phone will just ring off the wall with telemarketers from every insurance company and agency in the United States trying to get your business. And even worse, you go to your mailbox and there's flyers and brochures and postcards and advertisements. And it's not unusual for come into our office with a stack of mail a foot high that they've been piling up for months and months, and they're afraid to throw anything out because it's so confusing. They don't know which things they should keep and which things are just advertisements, and they really need to start, with debate Medicare, but they don't know that, and so that those phone calls in the mail, it adds to the overwhelm.
Sure, and then when you toss in the number of scammers that there are on the prowl that love to make older people their victims, that just makes the world a lot scarier, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really does. And so it's very important for new Medicare beneficiaries and all Medicare beneficiaries to work with a reputable agent and to do your research early. And we encourage people to start your research at age 64. Give yourself a good year of solid learning so that by the time your Medicare initial enrollment period comes around, which starts 3 months before your 65th birthday month, you already have a good understanding of the parts of Medicare and the different plan options. And then you speak with someone who's an expert who can drill down and really help answer the questions you still have. Giving yourself that lead time can really reduce the stress of the whole process.
Right, indeed. So if you already have Medicare Part A in place and you're about to retire, how do you go about getting Part B? Do you have to contact an agent? Can you just go online and get it? How does that work?
Yeah, so you actually will, there's two things that you will need to do. There's two forms that Social Security wants from you when you've worked past 65 and now you're adding Part B. There is a one-page application for Part B, short and easy, and then there's also an employer verification form. And so this is a form that you will print out and take to your benefits department or your HR rep at the company that you work for, and they will fill it out and testify, basically, that you have had this other group coverage from this large employer since the time you turned 65. And that's really important because if you didn't have that or you didn't maintain credible coverage, at 65 you start accumulating a penalty of 10% for every 12 months that you could have been enrolled in Part B, and then you weren't. And then when you do enroll, they add that 10% to your Part B premiums for the rest of your life. So it's like a penalty that follows you forever. And those two forms, the application for Part B and then that employer verification form, notify Social Security of when you want your benefits to start, but also you're letting them know, hey, I have maintained this creditable coverage. And so you can fax those into Social Security. You can go down in person. You can even upload them on your My Social Security website. And that's a really good way to go about it. And then, keep a check on it. Some people, early in the pandemic, it was not unusual for people to wait 4 to 6 weeks because a lot of the offices were closed. But they're catching up now and getting faster. A lot of times we see it maybe only take 2 to 3 weeks. If you haven't heard anything and you're waiting and your date is approaching, you need to follow up with Social Security and make sure that they're on it.
Yes, that's a good idea, and it's always good to follow up. Do you find that people who are in this age group are comfortable with doing the online thing, or not? Like I find, and my mom's like in that. I'm not going to tell her age because she'll probably not be very happy with me, so I'm not going to say that. But she's in this group. I'll put it that way. And she is not necessarily like super comfortable with doing, like, putting her information online. And me and my sister have explained to her that whatever she writes out and gives to the people, they're just going to take that and go put it online. Like, they're just, you know what I mean? Like, they're just going to take it and put it in a computer somewhere. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it can be scary, right? Because you're putting some personal information out there, your date of birth, your Social Security.
Right.
So there are people out there who have resisted the change to online. I can remember, and I've been doing this for 16 years, I can remember when I first started, there were people that didn't even have a computer. And so they for sure were not going online to do anything. They would call Social Security. Social Security would mail the forms, and then they would mail or take them back in person. Or they would just start downtown with a local office, Social Security office appointment anyway. There is some sense of relief, I think, if you go down in person and you're actually on a page that says you've applied and you can hold something that's showing you that it's in the works. But we have seen a lot of people really make change to online in these last few years as the whole world had to work around the fact that offices were closed. And we see people seem to be more comfortable with it now. But I'm sure that there are people all across America that were relieved to see the Social Security offices reopening. And some of them, I understand, may still be reopening. But you do have that option to go down in person if that's going to just give you that extra sense of security. Right.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, we're trying to slowly but surely convince her. I'm like, Mom, you can. She's just going to take it and do the same thing. We're just saving a step. Yeah. Like, whoever gets this is literally going to take this paper and just do the same thing. So if you are 65, but you're still going to keep working, you're going to just keep on going and working. Should you use your employer's insurance, or should you just get Medicare? Like, what do you think is better in your opinion?
So there's some comparisons, but the first thing to know is that if you work for a small company with less than 20 employees, Medicare is primary, so you definitely need to sign up for both Medicare A and B when you turn 65 in your window, and that group coverage would be secondary. So in that scenario, you're paying your Part B premium, and then on top of that, whatever your employer payroll deduction is for your group insurance. So you could look at those and compare and say, hey, could I get a Medigap plan through the private market for less money than what I'm spending on my employer coverage?
So I was going to say, so your Medigap would fulfill that requirement.
That's right. You would have a Medigap plan and a Part D drug plan, or you could choose the other route, which is a Medicare Advantage plan, but you would be able to let that employer insurance go. And there's some considerations there. Medicare Part D, it's not as robust as employer drug coverage most of the time. So if you're someone that's taking some expensive medications, it might be worth it for you to stick with that employer group insurance, even if it's more costly than a Medigap plan and a Part D drug plan, because you've got those, better drug benefits. That is one of the things that we look at when we're working with someone. That's the first thing we would look at in that scenario when we're comparing the numbers. And if we find that they have some expensive medications or maybe a better deal, we would tell them, hey, you need to stick with this, and then call us, a few months before you're getting ready to retire, and we would help you transition. So those are the considerations when you work for a small employer. But if you work for a large employer, 20 employees or more, that group coverage is primary, and so that would then be the scenario where you could have the Part A with a zero premium. You don't pay anything for that. You delay the Parts B and D. And in that scenario, usually we don't find that it makes sense for them to leave that group employer coverage and switch over to Medicare instead, unless there is just something about the employer coverage that's difficult for them. Does it have like a really high deductible, or is it quite expensive? Those would be where we run the numbers both ways and help people decide. But a lot of times if that employer coverage is primary and it's not costing too much, we would advise in that scenario for them to keep that until they retire.
That makes sense. We're up against a break, but you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We're speaking with Danielle Roberts. She's a founding partner at Boomer Benefits, and we're talking about 10 mistakes that you should definitely avoid when picking out Medicare and when taking care of Medicare and just when examining Medicare. We will be back on the other side of the break.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. Our guest this hour is Danielle Roberts. She's the founding partner of Boomer Benefits. And we're speaking to her this evening about the 10 costly Medicare mistakes you can't afford to make. And when we left off, we were talking about working full-time and whether or not it's a good idea to keep your health insurance or get Medicare insurance. And before the break, Danielle was helping us to appreciate the different circumstances under which you might want to keep your company insurance or use your Medicare insurance. And it was some really good information that she dropped regarding that. I want to move on to how you should choose your doctor. Are there any limitations as far as your doctor is concerned? with Medicare? Are there any referrals required when you're using Medicare as opposed to your employer type coverage?
Yeah, so it will depend on which way you get your Medicare. So if you are someone who doesn't have a retiree plan or something like that, you have Medicare as your primary insurance, one of the decisions that you will make when you first get into Medicare is how to supplement the parts that Medicare doesn't cover. So Medicare has deductibles for both inpatient and outpatient, and then Medicare covers 80% of your outpatient expenses. You're responsible for the other 20% forever with no cap. There's no stop loss on that. So most people will purchase either a Medicare supplement or they will enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. If you stick with original Medicare and you add the supplement, then you can see any provider that accepts Medicare anywhere in the nation. There are over 1 million providers. Something like 93% of all physicians in the U.S. accept Medicare. And so that is if you go that route, that gives you the most. It's great if you snowbird, if you travel a lot in the U.S., if you live an RV lifestyle, and you can use it anywhere that you go. And that Medicare is primary, your Medigap kicks in to help pay for those deductibles and that 20% so that you aren't left with those things out of pocket. You would add on a state plan, which is just a way to get some help with the cost of your prescriptions at the pharmacy. And that route is one route. The other route is the one that you probably see lots of TV commercials about. Medicare Advantage is a way that you can decide to get your Medicare Part A and B benefits through a private insurance company with a lower network. And in that scenario, you would want to make sure that your doctor is in the network for the plan, and you also would want to check to see if the drugs that you take are on the formulary. Many have a built-in Part D drug plan, which is certainly convenient, but it's not good if the drug formulary doesn't include one of your really expensive medications. So if you go the Medicare Advantage route, definitely have to check with doctors, make sure in the network, and also check on those medications too to be sure that you're going to have coverage and access for both of those.
Right, and the formulary is just like the list of drugs that they'll cover, right?
That's right.
We just throw around that fancy word, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood what that was. It's the teacher in me.
Good. Yes. Yeah, so they all will have a formulary, and they'll have a big list of medications, and they're divided up into different tiers. And, of course, generic drugs are cheaper than preferred brand drugs, and preferred brand are cheaper than specialty. There are, a lot of terms that you'll learn with Medicare as you go along that you're probably not going to know up front, but that is the most important thing. On that list of drugs, do you see that your prescriptions are covered?
Right, exactly. And because, they can all be very different, and it can all be confusing, and you need to know, and I feel like we covered this a little bit on my last show because we were talking about different things. But you want to be sure that, can you do the generic version, or do you need the name brand version? So you have to be careful about that, particularly if you have a condition that's chronic.
Yes, very important.
So now this I think is an important question, and one of the most confusing things about Medicare. What is the difference between a plan and a part, right? Because you have plans and then you have parts. And I think like the part about Medicare that tripped me up the most when I was studying for my test were the parts. All of the parts.
Yeah. Yes, and, Uncle Sam, in all of his infinite wisdom, decided Medicare A, B, C, and D.
Why didn't they just name them different things? Who thought parts A, B, C, and D was going to be the simplest way to do that?
Well, it isn't, and that alphabet soup gets even trickier because then when they created the Medigap plans, they labeled them A, B, C, D, F, G, K, L, M, N.
Right.
There's a few letters missing in there for plans that got discontinued. And so people will use the word parts and plans interchangeably when they're actually different things. And when you're working with an insurance agent, we will usually know what you mean because we understand what they all are. But for instance, a Medigap plan that is really popular in America is Plan G. It's the top seller. It's the one with the most robust coverage. But people will call and say, I want a Part G. And we know what they mean because Medicare only has parts A, B, C, D. There is no G. But you can see, just me talking about this, I can guarantee some of your listeners are thinking, oh, my goodness. So it wasn't the wisest usage of names, but it is what we're dealt. And so we do spend a lot of time explaining those differences.
Wow, the government made a less than wise bureaucratic decision. How shocking.
Yeah, good job, guys.
So, that is just really important when you're going through this information to make sure that you're clear on the difference between the parts and the plans.
Yes. Yeah, so the good, you're really only going to make choices on the parts A, B, C, and D going in. You know, everyone who's going to be on Medicare, and once they retire, they're going to have original Medicare, which the two parts together, A and B. Those are the two parts that you sign up for down at the Social Security office or on the Social Security website. Parts C and D are optional, and they came later, much later in Medicare's evolution. So Part C is if you wanted to do one of those Medicare Advantage plans where you decide to get your benefits from a local private insurance company instead of from the federal government, and that's optional. So you don't sign up for that at the Social Security office. You do that by enrolling with an insurance company. And Part D is the same. So Part D, the drug program, is optional. Optional because maybe you have VA benefits and you get your drugs at the VA, or you're still working and you can get drugs through your employer. You have Indian tribal benefits. Want to do a Part D plan. But if you don't enroll in one and you don't have one of those other creditable coverage, once again, later on when you change your mind, they will stick you with a penalty that is cumulative and follows you for life. So they do this to try to make people get serious about looking at these plan options and thinking about them when they first get into Medicare. But for those reasons, you don't sign up for C and D at Social Security. You're going to pick those through private insurance companies.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's I think that's helpful. But you know, if you're studying for this test, you have to keep saying it to yourself like over and over and over again.
Yes, you know, I have people tell us all the time that when they were learning this, they watched our videos or they were on the YouTube and they watched them over and over, just trying to get all these terms down in their head and sort it all out. It's a big undertaking.
And it is. And I mean, not for nothing, the way they ask you the questions is just like purposely to mess you up. Like it's not like they're super direct and like they have, you know, you have a Danielle explaining it super reasonably and logically. You know, they ask you like if a camel is going uphill and meets an elephant with a Part D plan, like what? You know, like, the questions are just super strange questions.
Yeah, and we get to do those every year. It's not fun.
Right. Mine is my link to my 24 credit C is sitting in my mailbox waiting for me right now.
I feel ya.
Yep, it's 24 credits every year, and I'm just like, why? Yeah, it's waiting for me right now. But it's, you know, it's either that or do the whole license again, and that is not happening.
Yeah, that would be worse for sure.
Exactly. That's not happening. But yeah, it's super terrible. But I think I said all this to know for my audience that, you know, do contact an experienced and a knowledgeable professional, because we are required to know this stuff backwards and forwards.
Yes.
You know, we have to do continuing education as much as we joke about it, but we're required to do continuing education, and because this stuff is kind of complicated, is I guess why they make us make sure that we are up on the latest and know this stuff really well.
Yeah.
And that's why they make us study it. But
yeah, that's right. And what a lot of people don't know, that working with an agent doesn't cost anything. The carriers pay agent commission. So
right.
If you want to speak with someone and get that knowledge and expertise, you can certainly do that and not feel obligated, and also know that there's nothing that you owe them for their time.
Yeah, that's very true. Yep, that's absolutely true. But yeah, that whole thing is funny, and I'm like, wow, it's been a year already. You got to be joking. But
comes up fast, doesn't it? Same
yes,
here.
Yes, it really sincerely does. It really does. So what is one of the most common mistakes that you find that people make in this area? Like something that they misunderstand about the use of their Medicare benefits? Like, what's something like if you would say, please just don't do this?
Yeah. So the biggest, in the book, we have one of my chapters is the big mistake, and that's the one that we see people get wrong the most. So when you first become eligible for Medicare, you get your little shiny red, white, and blue card with the Part B effective date. You have 6 months from your Part B effective date to sign up for any Medicare supplement you want with no health questions asked. It's like a golden window where you can get a plan and not have to worry about pre-existing conditions. There's also something in the fall that happens, the annual election period from October 15th to December 7th, and that is for changing your Part D drug plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. But we see people all the time let that 6-month window to get their Medicare supplement expire, and then they wait until they start having some health problems, and they think they can go and use the annual election period to get a Medigap plan with no health questions. And that's not the case, because the annual election period is only about drug plans and advantage plans. It has nothing to do with getting a Medicare supplement. And when people finally figure this out, it's often too late for them to qualify for that coverage.
So they can end up not qualifying for that coverage at all, or will it just be more expensive?
Typically, it will be not qualifying at all. There is at least one carrier that I know of that will take certain conditions at an increased rate, where they rate them up and they pay more for the coverage, but most of the time it's just a decline. There's a whole page of health questions, and if you answer yes to any of them, you're declined right at the agent level. Like, we don't even submit the application on that. If we do submit the application and all the answers are no and everything looks good, you're still going to have an underwriter that's digging around in your medical history and looking at the prescriptions on file for you and making sure that you're not hiding anything, and then they decide if they're going to issue that coverage. So if you miss that 6-month window, and let's say you had something like rheumatoid arthritis, which is treatable but not curable, you probably would be declined for most of the carriers out there, and then you're going to have to look at the Medicare Advantage route. And maybe that isn't the route you wanted. Perhaps you do travel a lot, and you like the idea of a typical Medicare supplement, Medigap plan where you can use it anywhere. And we have to break that unhappy news to people all the time.
Wow, rheumatoid arthritis. I wouldn't think. I didn't realize I didn't realize that was considered that bad. Yeah,
a lot of chronic conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's. Those are often conditions for which a carrier will automatically decline you. And even sometimes we see if you're diabetic and you take more than 50 units of insulin and you also have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, we can see people get turned down for that. They're not going to care if you take a few maintenance medicines. Maybe you have a blood pressure medicine and a thyroid medicine. Those are people that could easily get approved. But those things can knock you out. And also, if you have any pending surgeries, if you're in your medical chart, your doctor wrote that you need to have a knee surgery sometime in the next couple of years, an underwriter could find that and decline you until after you get the surgery.
Oh, wow.
So it is tricky, and that's why that 6-month window is so important, because during that window, you don't have to answer any health questions at all. It's an automatic goal.
Oh, that is good to know. I know in life insurance they got the big 6, right? Diabetes, cardiac arrest, cancer, the big 6, tobacco. all of those things.
Yes.
But yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, that's good to know. You should pick up. It's a bestseller, and I think it's got a 5-star rating on Amazon. If you're in the zone or nearing the zone, you should pick up that book. The name of the book is 10 Costly Medicare Mistakes You Can't Afford to Make. It doesn't say cannot. It says you can't afford to make. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, actually anywhere you need to buy the book. Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, we're easy to find. Facebook is where our biggest group of people are. You can go to the Boomer Benefits page. We have almost 1 million followers. And we also have a private Facebook group that you can join. It's called Medicare Q&A with Boomer Benefits. You don't have to be a client. You can join the group and come in and ask all your questions. My team and I are in there 365 days a year answering questions that come in from people all over America that need to know about Medicare.
Yep, very good. I actually tagged you in the post advertising that you were going to be a guest on the show, but in a couple days, the show will be posted as a podcast for anybody who missed it. So there'll be a link to the podcast in a few days, and I'll tag you again so that anybody who missed any of the information here will be able to click on it and play the show and hear anything that they missed.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on your show. I enjoyed it.
Thanks so much. You did a great job and just a lot of great, valuable information. We appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, and you are in the second hour of Money Talk with Melanie. If you missed the first hour, shame on you. You missed Danielle Roberts, who's the founding partner of Boomer Benefits, and she went over the 10 costly Medicare mistakes you can't afford to make. If you missed that first hour, you will be able to hear that first hour as a podcast on 98.7 The Coast website, where it will be posted in another day or two, and you'll be able to hear that not only on the website, but anywhere where you get your favorite podcasts, any of your favorite podcasting platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio. I don't know, what are the other podcasting platforms? Podbean, any of those podcasting platforms, you'll be able to find it. Even YouTube, believe it or not, it gets uploaded automatically as a podcast, as like a video, which is really cool. And it even has a little transcript that happens there. So if you subscribe there on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. If you follow me at Money Talk Mel on Twitter or at Money Talk with Melanie on Facebook, you'll find it there. You'll find it on Instagram. Like I said, anywhere you'll be able to find the podcast, and you'll be able to listen to that first hour, or you'll be able to listen to the second hour guest who will be coming up in a few minutes. Her name is Jodie Sacco. She's the founder of ActionCOACH Global Las Vegas, and she'll join us to discuss how entrepreneurs can avoid burnout and protect their mental health. Very important. One thing about entrepreneurs, usually when you start a business, you are passionate about what it is that you're doing when you start a business, and that tends to just lead to working, and burnout. So you need to avoid that. Burnout is no fun. Protect your mental health, and Jodie Sacco is going to coach us into learning how to avoid that. Burnout is not a good time. You don't want to do that, so she's going to talk to us about not to do that. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little more about what's going on in the economic news. I don't know if you've heard, but the Facebook, or the Facey, as I like to call it from time to time, its parent company, Meta, reported the first ever revenue drop, the first decline in years, as a matter of fact. And it also reported a muted outlook. Now, what do they mean financially when they say a muted outlook, that is a really diplomatic way of saying that they think they're going to lose money. Now, why is this? Now, I have my own theories, which we'll talk about first. There's a couple of things. Now, within the last year or so, Daddy Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Z, my man Mark Z, kind of admitted to interfering in the political sphere, which is not good. You know, you have a big, huge megaphone with Facebook. It's the public square, and he admitted to putting money into interfering. And his platform, and he owns Instagram, by the way. Did you know that? Were you aware that Marky Z owns the Insta? Yeah, he does. Owns the IG? He does. And he anything that they do to manipulate what the public is doing, because remember, the whole idea behind the Facey and the IG was that the public was supposed to have like full control, and it was a public thing. Like it was supposed to be like our voices, and they meddled, and they can, because it's a private company, and they're protected by this law called 230. And this is one of those situations where I'm hipping you to the whole how the government is involved with your money thing. Money Talk with Melanie, right? So there's this law to 230 that protects these private entities, the social media entities, and allows them to meddle in our free speech. So our free speech is just like kind of semi-free, kind of free on the social media platforms, because Facey and IG are privately owned, so they can kind of dig their hand in and manipulate our free speech and kind of give more free speech to some people and not others. Like, remember when some people were saying, I don't think that the vaccine like can keep you from getting COVID, and they were taking those posts down because they were saying, you definitely won't get COVID if you take the vaccine. And then like everybody who, I shouldn't say everybody, that's not true, but then like a lot of people who got the vaccine got COVID, including me. I'm raising my hand. You can't see me because we're on the radio, but I'm raising my hand, like got the vaccine and also got COVID, like a lot of other people. Yeah, right? So like a lot of people got the vaccine and also got COVID, and then like they switched it. So, but like when people were saying that, like, I think you'll still get, like, some scientists were saying that this vaccine is not, like, you're still going to get COVID. They called, the Facey people called those people liars and said that they were lying and took their posts down and prevented other people from seeing those posts. So they were, like, manipulating free speech. That's like an example. Called those people liars. Now, were they lying? Now looking back on it, maybe they were not lying. Seems like there was some truth to that. That's just an example. I'm just saying, I got vaccinated, so I'm not like an anti-vaxxer, but now maybe I would have thought, I did think 10 times about that vaccine. I did not really want to get it, but that's a story for another show. But maybe that would, if I had seen more of that information, I wouldn't have got vaccinated at all. But Mark Z had his thumb on the scale. So maybe that's why the revenue at Meta went down. Understand that the metaverse, that the Meta is a parent company of the Facey and the IG, etc. So now here's some other reasons. Here's the media reasons that they're saying. He's poured a lot of money into the metaverse, right? And if you should subscribe to Money Talk with Melanie. Like, if you're not, like, what are you even doing with your life if you're not subscribed somewhere, like at Apple Podcasts or YouTube or wherever? But there's an episode, a couple of episodes ago, I can't remember which one, that talks about the metaverse. We're very thorough with our descriptions, so you should be able to find it fairly easily. Believe the name of the guest is Oliver E., where he describes the metaverse. but part of it is kind of Mark Z's baby. He's poured a lot of money into the metaverse, and I heard today that he's actually even raised the price of what it costs to be involved in the metaverse, and you don't get any more meta stuff. But so that's part of the problem with what's going on with the Meta company. But there's a lot going on, and he's used to making money. He's never had a revenue drop before. You guys better keep your eye on Mark. Make sure he's all right. He's used to just making money and stacking cash. He's not used to taking an L. So I just thought you all need to know that. You need to understand that he's having the metaverse but the metaverse sounds creepy and awesome. Really go back and listen to that show if you haven't, and if you are interested in NFTs and the metaverse. If you're a techie, you're it's really cool. But if you're also concerned about humans and the world, you're also kind of conflicted. That also sounds like you should be concerned. You're concerned about AI. From a techie perspective, AI is wow, that's really cool. Artificial intelligence, which I'm trying to get an AI person on here in the next couple weeks, because it sounds really cool, but also kind of creepy. But just saying, you should check out that Oliver E. episode, because he really explains the metaverse and NFTs and all that stuff. But it's really cool. Anyway, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. We'll be back with Jodie Sacco to talk about resisting burnout for entrepreneurs. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. This hour, we have Jodie Sacco, the founder of ActionCOACH Global Las Vegas. She's joining us to discuss how entrepreneurs can avoid burnout and protect their mental health. Jodie Sacco is, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I did not ask her. I will talk to her about that when I introduce her. She's the founder of the ActionCOACH Las Vegas firm's branch. She's a master of business creation, business growth, strategy, and complex team training. Her path has taken her from working in every level of business, from being involved from the ground up in a multi-million-dollar business to now executively coaching business owners, businesses, and their teams. Jodie's journey of life has taken her to so many places and through endless avenues. Originating from South Africa, she has lived on 5 continents and knows 5 languages. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jodie Sacco.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
Hi. Is it Sacco or Sacco?
You got it right. Go Sacco.
Yes. I love when that happens. I'm if I've said her name wrong 25 times, I'll be so embarrassed.
No ways. You nailed it.
I usually email and ask for the phonetic pronunciation or the phonetic spelling, and I did not this time because I just kind of assumed, and you know what they say about that. So
exactly. That's a discussion for another time.
Exactly. Well, welcome to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm very glad to have you on the show. Is there anything that you'd like to add to your bio that I did not mention?
That I'm a single mom of 2 amazing daughters, 12 and 14.
Lovely. What a lovely age.
Yes, I absolutely adore it. And I think the most wonderful thing is that I get to be a role model for them each and every day. It's such an honor to be their mother and to watch them grow into just these beautiful, beautiful human beings. So I feel very blessed.
Indeed. If I had daughters that age, I feel like that would make me a much better person. No, I'm serious. Just knowing that you have 2 young women watching you, that you would just strive to be a better person, right?
Absolutely. It makes me level up each and every day.
I would think so.
Yeah, so true.
So true.
Yeah, I would think so. But I don't have anybody watching me with my dog, so I'm just a terror. No, I'm just kidding. But as a result, I just do anything I want. No, I'm kidding. I'm a terrible person now. But
I don't believe that for a minute.
I'm very glad to have you on the show because this is a really important topic because I think, one thing about entrepreneurs is that when they go on this journey to develop their own business or they decide that I want the flexibility to be an entrepreneur, I want my own business, and for whatever their motivations are. Sometimes people just fall into it. They discover something, they invent something, sure. or they just really want the flexibility of being an entrepreneur. That job, that motivation can lead to burnout for whatever reason. I was doing some research for the show, and I ran into an article by the Harvard Business Review that said research shows that the risk of burnout it leads to work-related issues such as job dissatisfaction, absenteeism, inefficient decision-making, and turnover, as well as health-related issues such as depression, heart disease, and even death.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's really terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's interesting is that I've grown up with a very academic background, so I do have a degree and in political science and linguistics, but here I am being in business nowadays. But my mum is a clinical psychologist, and I've grown up my whole life around being surrounded by her teaching me different things and discussing different things. So, what I do know, even now being on the business side of things, burnout, as especially an entrepreneur, oftentimes stems from loneliness, a lack of support, a lack of resources, and you're right. So many entrepreneurs do often either think that the grass is greener on the other side, thinking, well, I would rather do this for myself, or they stumble upon it, or maybe they forced into it. COVID created a force for a lot of people to have to start their own businesses. But what the unknown is that lonely factor. And that you're suddenly required to wear so many different hats as an entrepreneur that you just feel like you're drowning. Where are you getting your motivation from? Where are you getting your support? Where are you getting your inspiration? Where do you bounce your ideas off of? And so all of that can just be this self-perpetuating snowball that leads to this place where you either get petrified, you get paralyzed by this fear of failure or this fear of the unknown. I mean, there's just so many factors involved, and mental health is something that we're seeing on the rise, and I think it is as a result of so many people as well going into businesses on their own. It's a stressful role to play.
It is, and the study that I've read spoke to that as well. And I think what really happens is that people always see the result, but they don't see what goes into it. So right. So yeah. People who are entrepreneurs tend to be passionate about what they're doing, but they operate like you spoke to. The study said that they tend to be isolated, right? That they don't have a lot of safety nets. They're flying by the seat of their pants, and that they operate in high uncertainty. So, like when you have a job that you go to every day, a 9 to 5, you go, you punch in, you do your thing, you punch out. Entrepreneurs don't operate that way. So, like my podcast, right? The radio show, the podcast, it's an entrepreneurial pursuit, quiet as it's kept. right?
Yeah.
And my brand, it's part of my media empire.
Mm-hmm.
But it is part of my media, right?
You claim that, girl. You claim that.
Well, it is. It's part of my media. The word empire is used rather liberally, but it is. So the thing is, like, who do you talk to about that empire? Just like I'm sure that what you do is it's part of your empire, right?
Absolutely.
And so who do you talk to? So everybody sees, they see that you're doing a radio appearance, right? They see that I'm on the radio. They see that I'm on TV, but they don't see like all the stuff that had to be done to get there. They don't see that my poor producer that's sitting here has to tolerate listening to me bloviate for 2 hours. This poor woman, Alyssa, has to sit here and listen to me. But you know what I mean. But they don't see all of that, and it is very isolating.
Yeah,
and kind of lonely.
Yeah, definitely. One of the recommendations I would give straight out of the gate for anybody even contemplating entrepreneurship is to make sure. One of the things that I offer is an entrepreneur readiness quiz, because you need to understand what you're getting into. You need to be very, very clear about just how huge the responsibility of being an entrepreneur is, especially when you get to a stage where you start scaling your business and now you're bringing on team members. If you don't know exactly the direction you're going in and that you have the right support system in place, if you don't have a check on your own mental well-being, your business is not going to succeed, and then you're also going to be letting down other people. That's a major factor.
It's a major factor, and kind of trying to decide when is it time to delegate.
So good. So I actually wrote down my top 6 tips on how to avoid burnout and protect your mental health. And interestingly enough, it's number 5, which I'd be happy to go into with you, and it talks about understanding your value and knowing when to delegate. But I feel like that's something we could expand on. If you wanted me to do it right now, or we could.
Please do. Okay.
No, we'll put that at number 1.
Yeah, we'll make that number 1 because I feel like the number 1, one of the first things about that, like, entrepreneurial is a single pursuit, right? But it's all you. And the first danger is I don't want to give up any of my stuff. So I'm going to do everything.
Exactly.
Right?
So absolutely. So let's also just expand on this. Most people who start a business of their own, they start it because they're really, really, really good at a particular thing. So let's take, for example, somebody who is a horticulturist. They're passionate about working in gardens. They just excel at growing everything. Their grass always grows. Their bushes are immaculate and blooming. You know what I mean? They just have that green thumb. And so they decide, you know what? I'm tired of working for this company. I'm going to go and start my own. And the number 1 important factor is just because you're excellent at your trade doesn't mean you have any clue how to run a business.
Oh, absolutely. 150. Say it again for the folks in the back.
Right. Hello. You have to understand as an entrepreneur what you excel at, and you in knowing what your value is, you have to hire to your weakness. So you employ, if you're really, really brilliant at being that horticulturist, but you are terrible at running your books, the very first hire you're going to make is a bookkeeper. And if you don't like doing sales, your next hire is going to be a salesperson. So it's so important. Always, so here goes the first tip. Know your value, know your worth, know what you're excellent at, and work to that strength and hire to your weakness. And when it comes to delegation, you have to accept that, you know what, somebody else might be better at this task than me. And the way you do it is we do a little trick where we say, okay, let's put a value per hour on what your value is to the business. So
Yes.
let's say if you had a junior person designing this backyard and placing these plants in a specific area, you would probably pay that junior person, let's say, I don't know, maybe $30 an hour. But if you were doing it, you would 100% charge at least $75 an hour. Why? Because of your expertise and your abilities. So if you then are doing the sales, and you know that you can pay a salesperson $17 per hour, and you go, wait, I'm doing this right now? Wait, I'm wasting $75 that I could be earning elsewhere.
That's exactly right. You're leaving money on the table.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I read that in a time management book once, which is why that exact principle, which is why I don't do a lot of things anymore.
Yeah.
I delegate household laundry, gone. Like there's a lot of stuff that I don't do anymore. Website management, done. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I don't do. Right.
Yeah. Because your business can be making more money if your particular skills are being used in another area.
Exactly right.
So, yeah. So that's the point about delegation. You have to relinquish the things that if you hire the right people, you shouldn't have to worry about delegating.
Correct. That is very true. Now, I'll tell you where I struggle, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Things that are really close to my business that I'm afraid other people are going to mess up.
Okay.
Like my social media.
Okay. And what happens if they mess up? What's the worst that happens?
I guess nothing, I suppose. I suppose nothing horrible would happen.
I mean, maybe you get a couple bad comments. But what's interesting is that businesses grow faster on social media when there's a bad post, because the negative commentary starts generating more traffic, which then increases your algorithm. It's just ironic, right? So often we're scared of letting go of things, but I would highly recommend ask yourself good questions. Now, what's the worst thing that could happen if I let this go to somebody else?
Okay, you're probably right. And here's the really bad thing about it. I don't even think I'm that good at it. Like, I think I could hire someone who's better at it. But I'm afraid that they're going to do something that's going to damage my brand.
Yeah. And then
that's what I'm scared of.
Yeah. And then I'd ask the next question. What if they did it even better?
Okay, well, that could happen.
Yeah, it could happen.
That could happen. And I did post something about not making fear-based decisions anymore. Some buffoonery about that.
Yeah.
I suppose I meant it.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend another whole session, Melanie, on making sure you hire the right people, because then you'd never, ever worry about delegating. You know, when you hire somebody and you train them properly, and they know implicitly what Melanie's vision is, what the mission of your organization is, what the points of culture is, what the value of this organization is, if you put them through all of that process correctly, you would never have to worry that they're going to damage your brand.
Because that is highly personal. Like somebody posting something as me. That is, and like, I don't have any priors, but like, I feel like I would hurt someone.
Yeah.
If they posted something under my name that was problematic. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, we're allowed to. You just gotta let that beep go, girl.
But every time I'm like doing maintenance on my social media, I'm like, this is taking too much time, and I know I have stuff to do. That's not this.
Yeah, but you're leaving money on the table. Yep.
You're right. Okay, you're right.
So back to burnout and avoiding, obviously these are all things around it. But I still have 6 tips here. The next one that I would actually put at the forefront is, it's a phrase that an incredible human, his name was Jim Rohn, he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your work.
Oh.
And what on earth does that mean? Now, this all ties directly on how to avoid burnout and how to protect your mental health. If you engage in personal development, what does personal development mean? It simply means if you take time out in your day to know who Melanie is, what does Melanie want out of life? What is your purpose? Why have you been put on this earth? What is your why? And you really get to know and fall in love with Melanie. Each and every day, you will know that when you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, you are then capable to help everybody else around you. But so often as entrepreneurs, and especially as women, we are just, I don't know if it's a cultural thing for a lot of us, especially us African women, we're made to believe that it's all about the sacrificial being, that you have to give of yourself, and that it's always about everyone else first, because then you've been a success.
Oh, so very true.
Absolute nonsense.
And it is. We're up against the break, Jodie. I'm loving this topic. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We're talking to Jodie Sacco from ActionCOACH Las Vegas. We're talking about avoiding burnout as entrepreneurs. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We're speaking with Jodie Sacco. She's the founder of ActionCOACH Global Las Vegas. We're speaking to her about how entrepreneurs can avoid burnout and protect their mental health. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of delegating different things that we do, different entrepreneurial activities. I want to talk to you about whether or not it's important to disconnect from everything. I read in my research that one of the things that Bill Gates does as an entrepreneur is he has something called a Think Week, where he disconnects from everything. I don't know about that.
Yeah. I mean, it would depend on the stage of your business, really. If your business is not in ActionCOACH, our definition of a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. In that case, if you had built the business to the stage where it was fully functioning, yeah, sure, you could take a week off, but we don't all have that luxury. So my top tip for that is absolutely, you do need to schedule time to work on the business and not always be stuck in the business. And there's a huge difference that entrepreneurs must understand. There has to be at least 4 hours a week that's dedicated to strategic planning, strategic thinking, working with your team, analyzing your financials, looking at your marketing, knowing your numbers. You are not an entrepreneur unless you take the time to do that. You're not even a business owner, in my opinion. You basically, if you never take time to work strategically on your business and take that time away from it, you are the worst paid employee in your business. That's all you are.
Oh, you did not lie. You are so right. I mean, that is a harsh truth. You're doing it wrong if you're not paying attention, right?
Absolutely.
To the reality of what you're doing.
Yeah. So let's give the listeners some very practical ways on how they can carve out the time to work on the business. Because right now, I bet you, Melanie, you've got all these listeners going, oh, hell no, I don't have the time to do that. What, are you kidding me? She doesn't understand how my business works. Well, you're stuck on the hamster wheel, and you're probably the one that's cleaning the toilet and the first one in and the last one out. Well, your employees are just home, kicking back, having a drink and laughing with their family. So do you want things to change? Then maybe you should change some things, right?
Yep. So listen up. Listen up.
Listen up. So the best way to do this is this is my third tip, is the way you set up your morning is going to determine the outcome of your day. So you want to set your alarm for 10 minutes earlier than you would normally get out of bed. And when that alarm goes off, I want you to lie there with your eyes closed still, and I want you to visualize what it is that is the top thing that you're going to achieve in the day. And then I also want you to go so further as to visualize your dream, what this business looks like when it's finished. And go so far as to feel the emotion of it. What are you wearing when you are this super successful entrepreneur? Who is around you? What are you drinking in celebration of breaking through the $1 million barrier or the $1 billion barrier? So it's so important to think about that first thing in the morning. And then what you do is you go into your day as if it's day one. Today, and all you focus on is what you have right here in front of you today. That's really going to help with overwhelm. And then at the end of the day, you want to bookend the day with what is your top win of the day and what can you be grateful for? Because that really sets our brain the tone for what are we going to be thinking about when we go to sleep, right? Yeah, sure, you probably had lots of bad things that happened in the day. You maybe lost some money along the way. But by focusing on the things that we want and the things that the wins, energy flows where our focus goes. We want more of the good things, but our human nature makes us focus on the bad things, right? So that's the one side of it. Here's the biggest tip, is I want you to create a default diary. Now, do you know what that is, Melanie?
No.
Have you heard of that before?
No, what's that? I have never heard of that, and I thought I thought that other tip was going to be far more dramatic. When you said set your alarm, I was like, here we go, 4:30 a.m.
No,
I was like, okay, 10 minutes early is doable. Okay. Because I really thought you were going to say, all successful entrepreneurs get up at 4 a.m. I was like, here we go, another one of those. No, 10 minutes earlier is doable. Yeah. Okay, good.
Right, that's all it is. 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening before you go to sleep. So the default diary is the next very, very important thing. You can go and Google default diaries, but here is the lowdown. So a default diary takes a week, and you're going to block out in your diary when you want to be doing certain things. So, for example, me as a coach, I only coach on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. The reason being is that I need to keep open my Mondays and Fridays for my strategic work. So on a Monday, I am meeting with my team. I'm going over financials. I'm looking at my marketing strategy. I'm making sure that my financials are in check, looking at my invoicing. So you see, I've still got a pulse on everything in my business, but I'm looking at it from an owner's perspective. And then on the Friday, I'm meeting with my team again, checking, have we reached our goals for the week? What's happening next week? What do we need to work on? I'm also doing all my sales calls on those days. But what I have in that default diary is my little morning routine. I also have education. So whilst I'm having my coffee in the morning, I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to YouTube. But it's all in my diary. I then also have in my default diary, I block out the times that I know I have to be with my children. And then when I get a phone call from a prospect and they say to me, okay, I'd love to start coaching with you, I already know in my mind, okay, I coach on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. I don't have to then, I'm not allowed to, I make like these rules, right? Sorry, I'm not available on a Monday. I'm available on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it becomes a routine. And yes, I'm going to tell you this right now. Every successful person, every single one of them has some kind of routine. The default diary for me has been an absolute game changer, Melanie. I would highly recommend it.
I see it. All this stuff is on the internet that you don't know about until you Google it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all there.
I'm like, right? I've never seen a default diary, heard of a default diary in my life. I Google it, and they're like, we've been sitting here, Melanie. I don't know where you've been, but we've been sitting all over the internet.
All there, all the time, right? You just need it as South Africans to tell you.
Yes. So we're unfortunately at the end of the hour. We're gonna have to bring you back. Yeah. But tell people. No, I know. Can you believe that? So tell people where they can find you, where they can avail themselves of your services, your social media, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my website is actually my name. So it's JodieSacco.com. So it's JodieSacco.com. You can get me. I'm on every single social media platform, on LinkedIn, and then our Instagram account is ActionCOACH That's the best way to get a hold of us, or our website. And we would be more than happy to help. And if you make reference to the radio channel, I will gladly give you a complimentary 1-hour session. I'm happy to do that for everyone.
Excellent. And I tagged you when promoting the show. It'll be posted as a podcast in the next few days. And when I do that, I'll be sure to tag you again with a link so that your clients and whomever who would like to listen to the show, I will tag you and make sure that you will be able to hear it. I'll tag you everywhere.
Oh, thanks, and vice versa. Okay. It's been an absolute pleasure, Melanie. I love your energy, and go build that empire, girl.
Likewise. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I want to thank my guests this evening, Danielle Roberts, Jodie Sacco. I want to thank Alyssa for doing the boards tonight. Stellar job, ma'am. And I want to make sure that you are listening to next week's Money Talk with Melanie, where my guest will be business analyst Lipton Matthews. He wrote a very important article that's found on the Mises Institute website, misesinstitute.com. Capitalism is not racist. Capitalism undermines racism. That should be a very exciting show. Catch up with us next Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. right here on 98.7 The Coast. And remember, this is important because it's your money. Have a great night.